Bayonetta falls into a genre which doesn't see mainstream success too often. It's a 3D brawler from 2009, developed by PlatinumGames, which first came out on the PS3 and Xbox 360. It received glowing reviews but a below average sales performance. Although the title character is pretty well known, she never quite hit the peak of recognition that other properties did. Now that it's celebrating its 10th anniversary and seeing a re-release on the PS4, we figured that we should take it for another spin and see if it still holds up. The first thing that strikes me is that the game's story doesn't get talked about nearly as often as it should be. It's a riff on Dante's Divine Comedy, Christian theology mixed with a bit of Gnosticism, about a conflict between Paradiso, Purgatorio, and Inferno, and the human world that gets caught up in between them. It concerns an order of umbral witches, who wield great power and operate secretively within this ongoing conflict. This is all introduced in one very cryptic cutscene that shows just what Bayonetta is capable of for minutes before the player gets to do any of it. The story is more complicated than the usual excuse plot fare that's common in the beat-em-up genre, but it also doesn't take itself too seriously. It's rare to consider a story which is memorably over the top, which at the same time never feels exploitative. If you can handle the odd innuendo, you'll find that Bayonetta's characters are all dynamically layered, and there's little guilt to be had in enjoying this one. Part of the appeal of a character action game is, of course, the character. The player gets to control someone with personality, and this should show in the way that character moves, fights, and interacts with their environment. Everything that Bayonetta does is outlandish and exaggerated. She is half a power fantasy and half a winking joke at anyone who would take this game seriously. The game goes to a great length to help the player respect the character and understand her motivations. Although she falls victim to laser-guided amnesia and a shadowy past that comes back to haunt her, the moment-to-moment gameplay sees her empowered and enjoying every moment. It helps that PlatinumGames absolutely nailed their animations here. Attacks smoothly cancel and combo into one another, and enemies react to your moves accordingly. Bayonetta's moveset is varied and interesting, mostly due to her 4 guns, one for each limb, that fire whenever the respective attack button is held. And then there's smacking a foe across the stage with a Wicked Weave attack, which is just... it's just satisfying. There's a good balance of player empowerment and genuine challenge at play here, and that's discerned neatly by the game's 5 difficulty modes. On casual, the game virtually plays itself, so you can just sit back and watch a cool movie. On hard, enemies are much more aggressive, and without skillful dodging, you'll constantly be informed that the witch hunts are over. Bayonetta's signature mechanic is that dodging at just the right moment activates witch time, which slows the game down and allows the player to freely perform a combo on an enemy. This design makes Bayonetta feel more energetic than most beat-em-ups. Enemies still feel aggressive and threatening, since their attacks don't always get interrupted. Meanwhile, players still have the opportunity to try out one of the game's many combos. One of the downsides of the PS4 port, which probably sounds like me being nitpicky really, is that the levels load way too quickly. This means that you don't get the time to try out combo strings on the loading screen before you're ushered into the stage. Bosses get an extra coating of cinematic flair. They're often designed with the stages and locations in mind, and they dynamically shift and change their challenge as the level goes on. I'm only showing the first few major encounters here so the rest can be a surprise for players. The boss design never stops being creative, and it's a real delight for anyone's first playthrough. That being said, it's really the moment-to-moment combat which does it for me. The game's enemy designs are top-notch, taking inspiration from actual biblical accounts of angels rather than our modern-day assumptions. Biblical angels are terrifying, and they've been rendered really well here. The game even does this nice flourish every time you encounter a new one. Enemies are varied in their attack patterns, and as well as how players are meant to approach them. At the end of each encounter, you'll also get a grade on how efficiently you dealt with them, going all the way from stone to pure platinum. The encounters then get tallied up all at the end of the chapter to give players a final rank. As you can see here, each stage has its fair share of hidden, missable encounters, so there's a lot of replay value involved if you're keen to get 100%. Even 10 years down the line, it's easy to see why Bayonetta is considered such a cult classic. Aside from its sequel, there aren't many games out there on the market which provide the same sense of fluid action and challenge. With rumors of the third game still floating about, and since PlatinumGames finished their work on Astral Chain, it's a great time to go back to the original Bayonetta and check out exactly where the series began.
It never stops with you!